so much. Thank you, Brent, for those words. We really appreciate your attention to older workers, your support of older workers. And I'd like to welcome to the stage our next conversation. We're going to be speaking next with Senator Horsford. Come on up to the stage. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I had to get my battery changed so that you could hear me. I was going to have to yell. But we have another fireside chat here, and this is another really important conversation. This is U.S. Representative Stephen Horsford, Democrat from Nevada's 4th Congressional District. Did I get Nevada? Did I say it right?
Nevada.
We were practicing in the back because here in the East we say Nevada. He said it's Nevada, so I need to get that right. And I did also want to say we were in there talking with Governor Moore, and I reminded him that I had done one of his very first interviews 20 years ago in television in Baltimore. And I remember after he left, and he was a very, very young person, and I said to my co-anchor, you know, I just wouldn't be surprised if he did something with himself. And so here we are with another person who has done quite a great deal with himself, but also for the people that he represents. You are one of the leading workforce development experts in Congress, and you're not just a member of the House Appropriations Committee, but you're also here as the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus. Talk to us briefly about your journey to this point.
Well, it's great to be here. Anytime I can follow Governor Moore, I know I must be in the right place. And I want to thank Gary Officer and this organization for hosting this convening on such important topics, and Harold, for you including me in this fireside chat. So before I ever came to Congress, I led the largest job training program in Nevada, the Culinary Training Academy and Nevada Partners. It's a joint labor management partnership between the Culinary Workers Union and all of the major hotels in Las Vegas. The hotels pay into a training fund based on the hours that are worked, and we, through that program, trained thousands of people for careers in the hospitality industry every year. We had over an 85% placement rate. And in culinary in Las Vegas, that's all of the major positions, not just cook, but food servers, guest attendants, bartenders, wine servers, and sommeliers, the people who are the backbone of the industry. But in addition to that, we ran another nonprofit that trained in construction and healthcare and IT and in other sectors, particularly for youth, for veterans, for individuals that were changing careers and trying to transfer their skills, particularly those from the military who were moving into civilian life. And so I have had the honor of being able to work in those environments, and that has helped inform the work that I do here in Congress. I believe that everyone wants the shot to a good opportunity, and that comes from having the skills, the training, the education, and the opportunity to pursue careers and entrepreneurship in every sector. And especially as we have disruption in the workforce, you know, we need to be very intentional about who we're including in this process, who has been historically left out, particularly women and people of color, and those who are older, and previously incarcerated individuals, foster youth, homeless youth. There are people who have skills and ability, and when given the chance, can pursue their dreams. I know because someone provided that opportunity to me, and because of that, I'm where I'm at today.
Considering that very point about where you are today, the Congressional Black Caucus has often been considered the conscience of the House of Representatives. We are in very turbulent political times, as you know. How do you measure success as leader of the Congressional Black Caucus right now?
Well, the Congressional Black Caucus is the conscience of the Congress. We have been around 51 years. We now have 59 members, 56 in the House, and now 3 in the Senate, with Senator LaFonza Butler being appointed in California. We collectively represent over 120 million Americans, about 20 million Black Americans, and we represent everybody. We fight for the least, but we represent people from every background. And what I try to say all the time is we fight to help uplift Black people in the Black community, because when we uplift the Black community, we lift up everybody. The Congressional Black Caucus is very much focused in this moment on holding the line against the attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly after the affirmative action decision and the Supreme Court actions that had nothing to do with DE&I, but now unfortunately we have Republican attorney generals, we have senators like Tom Cotton and others who have used that decision to try to bully the private sector and governmental agencies into retreating from their commitments around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We believe this is a time for us to lean in on strategies that work. Why? One, it's a business imperative. Companies are doing it because consumers demand it. But number two, with the changing demographics of our country and our nation, it's the diversity that is our strength. Not just racial diversity, but diversity of women in the highest levels of government and in the private sector, of people with different learning disabilities being included in our workforce strategies and approaches, ensuring that we have inclusive work environments for the LGBTQ plus community. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is for all of us. It's not for the exclusion of certain groups, it's for the inclusion of everyone. And so at a time when there are attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, just like there are attacks on our democracy, the message of the Congressional Black Caucus is clear. We are not going back. We will not be silenced. And in fact, we are promoting a more bold agenda to actually attack the wealth gap that exists in this country and really trying to improve economic prosperity, wealth building, and legacy building for all communities.
How do you bridge the age gap? There are several new members of Congress who are very young, and then there are members who have been there a while. How do you, did I say that? How do you bridge the gap between the youngest new members and the more seasoned members who have been there a while?
So within the CBC, we actually have the youngest member of Congress, Congressman Maxwell Frost, who just turned 26 years old. And we have some of the more seasoned members. I won't say that they were the ones who've been there longer, they just are more seasoned. And what we've actually done is we have a mentor-mentee program within the CBC. Look, people with experience are very much needed in this moment. We need their intellect, their insight, their legislative experience, all of the struggles that we've endured, from voting rights to civil rights to women's rights. You would think that we've won these battles, but yet we're learning we're coming back all over again. And so one of the things that I really try to emphasize with all of our members is, despite the diversity of our caucus, whether it's the House Democratic Caucus or the Congressional Black Caucus, it's actually the strength of our assets. And when we work together, regardless of ideological leanings, we can bring more people into this process. Look, our democracy, which to me are the cornerstones of public education, the free press. Thank you for being a journalist, for telling the truth and giving out accurate information at a time when there's misinformation and disinformation. The cornerstones of our democracy are also the courts, which have been packed over the last few years based on the prior administration. And the most fundamental cornerstone is our voting system and process. And despite the fact that we have the ability in most places to vote, we do not have everyone participating the way we need. And it's the same in the workforce. We need everybody on the field in this moment. We don't need practices that leave people out. We need practices that bring people in. And so whether it's addressing voter suppression or taking on the efforts to make sure that every vote is counted and then certified, something that I didn't think that I would have to fight for in my generation because it was fought for in previous generations, we understand in this moment we have to still carry on those battles. But we need to do the same thing in the workforce. At a time when you have tremendous workforce needs, we have people who are being left out of the process, who are not being brought in because there's not a focus on training or on connecting them to the skills that are needed in these in-demand sectors. Making sure that the jobs and where they're available are where the people are. And I talk a lot to the private sector about being more creative about how they engage with the workers that they need. Don't just rely on them to come to you. How can you reach out to them and meet people where they are? So it's the models that I think work. And your question about having the youngest members and the most seasoned members, it's the experiences of both that actually help us accomplish what we need to accomplish in this moment.
As it relates to the workforce, last year during the CBC annual legislative session, you led a discussion about corporate America fulfilling the DEI promises after the death of George Floyd. There was a great groundswell from corporate America, but here we are now in 2023. Where are they? Has that gone away? Are they listening when you bring these things up? And what can you do if they're not?
Well, let me be absolutely clear. The corporate America needs to be held accountable to the promises they made as leaders of industry, not just following George Floyd, but especially based on the racial equity and injustice that occurred as a result of George Floyd. But the focus of diversity, equity, and inclusion, investments in community, corporate social responsibility, making sure that companies are living up to their values, these are business imperatives. And so all I'm saying as chair of the Congressional Black Caucus to the business community is do what you promised and be accountable to what you said you would do and be transparent about where you are in the measurement of those commitments, whether it's in the workforce area, whether it's in supplier engagement with diverse suppliers and vendors and how they're contracting to small businesses, whether it is their investment in the communities that they operate. So again, my background is in workforce development and training. When I was out of Congress for 4 years, I helped several companies develop their strategies around corporate social responsibility. I know programs that work and that are effective, and I know programs that are just talk. And what we're saying to corporate America is we're done with talk. Because at a time when the black-white wealth gap, for example, is at $1 trillion delta. $1 trillion. And what does that mean? It's $1 trillion of lost economic productivity. It's 4 to 6% of greater GDP if we just had every black person achieve parity, not equity even. I know this conference is more about equity. If we just had parity, we would create 650,000 new black small businesses. We would have 3 million more black people in the middle class. We would bring about $30 billion of consumer spending annually. I mean, this is about business. This is about money. This is about capitalism. And so we are leaning in on this moment. We're not retreating. There may be some people who think that the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the lawsuits that this Ed Bloom guy is leading against the venture capital fund like the Fearless Fund or the 8A program. Now he's suing West Point to take away the ability for college students to be able to be considered based on their racial background. We're calling out the people who are standing in front of our opportunity and who are trying to prevent us from having it, while at the same time inviting corporate America to do what they said they would do and to work with us to achieve the best practices that we know can narrow that wealth gap, not just between black and white America, but for all Americans. Because when we lift up everybody, we can help grow this economy and grow it in a more equitable and fair and sustained way.
Congressman, I have so many more questions, and I know you have so much more to say, but I promised your staff that
I get a little passionate about this.
And that is what we expect. But I also know that you have pertinent business on the Hill.
We have a speaker to
speaker
vote on.
It's going to happen today, and so I'm 30 seconds over. I will be penalized for that, I'm sure. But thank you so very, very much. Good luck today, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.